All right, everybody. Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. I now hand it over to President of Baseball Operations, David Stearns. David.
Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for hopping on. I'll start by just thanking Brandon and his family for an incredible career with the Mets. From the moment the Mets drafted Brandon, he did everything right here. He represented the organization exceptionally well on and off the field, and really was a great Met. We wish Brandon and his entire family nothing but the best as they embark on the next phase of Brandon's career with the Texas Rangers. We're also really excited to add Marcus Semien to our organization. Marcus brings an elite level of defense. He's one of the best defensive infielders in baseball and has been for a number of years. He's a winner. He brings a winning drive and determination that we think is going to fit well in our clubhouse. And he balances our lineup from the right side, which is something we were seeking to do. So very happy to be able to bring Marcus in. And beyond the immediate player return part of this deal, we think this opens up possibilities and flexibility for us going forward, both from a near-term perspective and also allowing space for a number of very young outfielders who are coming, who are talented and will deserve spots at the major league level and to play at the major league level. And this transaction also provides room for that to happen as we move forward. So these are always tough decisions. This was not easy. Everyone here thinks very highly of Brandon. But in order to create the type of sustainable championship caliber play that we seek to have here, at times these types of decisions are necessary. And I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you have.
Thank you, David. As a reminder, please use the raise hand feature located at the bottom of the screen. We're going to end up, please state your name and affiliation. We'll start it off with Anthony DeComo.
Anthony DeComo, MLB.com. Hey, David, can you just walk us through the timeline of how this came about from conception, like whose idea it was at first, and all the way through to, I'd be curious to hear about your thoughts presenting it to Nimmo, who obviously had to clear it.
Yeah, this is something that really probably gained steam last week after the GM meetings. I think throughout the offseason, Texas had looked at Nimmo as a very attractive fit for them, and we had looked at Semien as a potentially really good fit for us. But we didn't really line up and really start making progress on this, I think, until towards the tail end of the GM meetings into last week. These are difficult deals to put together. You're talking about two very established players. You're talking about two players who are embedded in their organizations, who have had success there. And clearly in Brandon's case, you're talking about a player with no trade protection. And yeah, I'm going to keep the specifics of the conversation with Brandon, I think, between the two of us, but Brandon's a pro. He's the ultimate pro. He was very respectful, considerate, and considered, I think, throughout this process. He took time to digest everything, took time to speak with his representation, took time to speak with his family, to determine what was best. And ultimately, he decided to accept the trade.
Brandon was obviously not just a longtime player here, but a fan favorite. You've alluded to this a couple of times already, but to what extent or how much do you weigh those sorts of things versus just a pure baseball decision in these matters?
Yeah, it was something we had to think about, no question, both in terms of fan reality and the fan relationship with Brandon, but also we have real relationships with Brandon, and our players have real relationships with Brandon. Coaches do, front office does. And so that is a part of this, and that certainly makes decisions like this a little bit more challenging than they otherwise would be. But at the end of the day, I still felt like this was the right decision for the organization.
Thanks.
Well,
Hey, David. Just when you talk about wanting to give young players a chance to play and have those avenues opened up, how do you kind of square acquiring a 35-year-old at a position where you have these young players who are available and who are maybe, if not already ready to contribute a year or so away from doing so?
Yeah, I think the good thing about the players who maybe have played second base for us over the past couple of years who are a little bit younger or who may be coming who are infielders, there's a ton of positional versatility with all of them. So whether that's Acuna or Jet Williams or Ronnie Mauricio, we have a high degree of confidence that all of these guys can play multiple positions and can play them at a high level. And so we don't look at the Semien acquisition as necessarily blocking anyone from continuing their progression.
And just how much did you, I guess, wanting to change the clubhouse dynamics, did that play a role into this trade at all?
I don't know if it's necessarily wanting to change the clubhouse dynamics. I think it's a recognition that what we did last year wasn't good enough, and running back the exact same group wasn't the right thing to do. And so as we went into this, we believed and still believe that we have to be open to anything, that we shouldn't be in a spot to take anything off the table. And ultimately, if we're able to put transactions together that we think make sense for the team, both now and in the future, that we have to consider them regardless of what names may be involved.
Disha?
Hey, David. Just Semien is obviously coming off of a down year at the plate. Given his age, it points to an obvious decline. Just what makes you believe that he can rebound offensively?
Yeah, I think there's still some underlying aspects of what he does that are encouraging for us offensively. I also think it's notable that this is a player that can contribute to winning baseball in a variety of different ways. And the bat may not actually lead the way at this point in his career. We think there's likely some bounce back in his offensive profile and his offensive game. But what we're counting on at the top of his skill set is the contributions he can make for us defensively, how he can perform on the bases. And we think those are going to help us win games.
Yeah, and then you have alluded to it a little bit. What are those intangibles from Semien in terms of winning drive, leadership, his high character? What did you like there about him?
I think as we really began to dig in on who this person was, talk to his former teammates, former coaches, people who have been around him, this is someone who takes his craft incredibly seriously. Someone who does everything he can on a regular basis to get in the lineup, to perform at a high level, practices hard and holds those expectations of his teammates as well. And I think that's going to fit in very well for our group.
We'll go with Tim Britton from The Athletic.
Hey, David. Obviously, you have a second baseman who's been there for a while in Jeff McNeil. Kind of where do you view McNeil fitting into your roster at this point in time now with Semien on board?
I think Jeff, by virtue of his positional versatility, still has the ability to impact our team in a variety of ways. What exactly that's going to look like is probably going to have to wait until we watch the rest of the offseason unfold. But certainly his ability to play corner outfield is a help. There may still be days if Semien needs a blow where he's playing some second base. We may ask Jeff to play some first base, depending on how the offseason pans out. I talked to Jeff yesterday. He understands where we're headed. I think he wants to be a part of this, and he understands his positional versatility is a real asset for us.
And then you mentioned at one point that running it back from last year was not the right thing to do. At what point during that slide over the final couple months of the season did you, as a front office, come to that conclusion that you would need to do maybe more changes than you had initially thought? And is this enough of a change in your mind, or is there more to come?
So I think when you're in the moment in going through a playoff push, you're focused on the day-to-day You're focused on trying to do everything you can to win that day. And there's off-season preparation going on. But there's probably not that time for real reflection on how the team is performing at that moment. So I think once we got into the offseason and had the time to fully reflect on our team is when I became convinced that we weren't just going to run it back, that we were going to make some changes. You're never sure which changes are actually going to occur, which changes are actually going to be possible. And that's still the case as we move forward. I don't know what the next transaction is right now, but I know we're going to keep going in the offseason, and I'm very confident we're going to have a productive offseason.
Laura Albanese from Newsday.
Hi, David. How do you foresee the outfield alignment shaping up, and does this increase your appetite to go after a sort of higher profile free agent outfielder, or do you still feel like there are internal options that you can kind of plug those holes with?
I think it would be too early for me to really determine how our outfield alignment's gonna shape up. Look, we've got Juan. Tyrone Taylor's back with us. We're very excited. We've got a number of young outfielders, including Carson Bench, who we think are going to contribute at the major league level over the course of next year. As I mentioned, we think Jeff is a contributor at the major league level in the outfield next year. Jet Williams has seen some outfield time, and we believe can play well there. And we've seen that in the minor leagues. And then there is the opportunity for external acquisitions, and we've got a lot of offseason left. I would expect us to continue to be active in a variety of spaces to bring players in here. And I think we'll have a better feel for what all of that looks like as we get much farther into the winter and ultimately into the spring.
Abby from the Daily News.
How much do you have to sort of weigh some of the clubhouse stuff in terms of, Nimmo was the key leader, Semien's the key leader, obviously on another team, but is sometimes some of that stuff a little bit, I don't know, overblown by the fans? I mean, does it not weigh as much as their on-field production or on-field contributions would be?
I think it's all part of our decision points and our evaluation of the team. Very difficult to create an equation for how you balance on-field performance and clubhouse chemistry and clubhouse leadership, and how different pieces within that puzzle are all going to fit together. Very difficult to measure any of that. And so, Brandon clearly was a very important piece, a prominent piece of our clubhouse for a long time. And we think Marcus is going to be able to fit in very well also.
Moving with Mike Fitzpatrick from the AP.
Hey, David. Your first baseman, your closer are both, officially free agents now. Have you had a chance to engage them extensively in talks? Excuse me. How would you characterize those negotiations or pursuits at this point with Alonso and Diaz?
As I've said before, we'd love to have Pete and Edwin back. They're both great Mets. I'm not going to get into any of the specifics of any conversations that we've had to this point.
Anthony?
David, if you wanted to re-sign Pete, re-sign Edwin, and go out and get a top flight outfield acquisition, do you have the financial latitude to do that?
I think our ownership group and Steve is very consistent that they're willing to support what we think is right from a baseball perspective. Payroll space is not unending, but I am also very confident that we're going to have the support we need and certainly the resources we need to put a very good team on the field.
Is what I just described a realistic strategy for you guys this offseason?
Sure. Yeah, I think anything would be realistic right now.
Thank you.
Jake Mintz from Yahoo.
I know you only overlapped with Brandon in Queens for 2 years, but when you look back on, the entirety of his Mets tenure, what sticks out to you?
Look, I think it's the relationships that Brandon was able to create throughout our organization and the community. And I think that speaks to his authenticity and that connected with a lot of people. And he deserves a lot of credit for that. And I think that's what we'll miss most.
Keisha?
Just one more on Nimmo. How much did his recent injury history change the value of his 8-year contract that he originally signed, especially with the repeating neck injury that would take him out sometimes?
I don't know. I think Brandon posts pretty well. And look, they're going to be nagging injuries for any player, especially as you get into these stages of their careers. But Brandon did everything in his power to get on the field, and clearly more nights than not, he was out there playing left field for us.
Any additional questions? All right, David, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today, and we appreciate everybody hopping on the call.
Thank you very much.
This concludes today's availability. Thanks again.